G'day, I'm John Simpson and welcome to the very first episode of Foley Down Under. So this first episode, I just want to introduce myself, a little bit of info on the films I've worked on and the history behind Foley. We have one man to thank for Foley, and that's a chappie by the name of Jack Foley. Many of you would have heard of him. He was the first person to start making sound effects in sync with film, as in live performance of sound effects. Now, his first film I worked on was called Showboat. That was in 1936 is when it was released. And basically Jack did heaps of other things before that. He was a director, a stuntman, multi-talented kind of guy who's been and seen and done everything, and ended up being a Foley guy, because that's just what he started, and he was obviously very good at it. Being multi-talented, that really helps you in your land of Foley. The more life experience that you have, I think really does help in creating your sound, because if you've been out, you've been listening to things. Everywhere I go, I'm listening to noises. I work on cars. I fly drones. I like bushwalking. We like going camping. I like driving. I've driven rally cars for years. All these different things. We live on a farm. We've got lots of animals. We're fencing. We do welding. Fixing tractors, and all these kind of life experiences really help make a good sound person, I think, because we know what real sounds sound like, and you've got to have that kind of mind to know how things can be put together, because you're not always going to have something in a Foley room to create that effect. So you're going to have to build it from layers. And later in the episodes, we'll go through layering of sounds and how to choose things like that. So some of the films that I've worked on, and the ones that I'm most proud of, would be King Kong. That was the Peter Jackson version of King Kong. We got Happy Feet. That was a challenge with all the little penguin feet and wings and things like that. We've got The Adventures of Tintin, which was one of the most amazing pictures I've worked on, directed by Steven Spielberg. There was a level of animation in there which I hadn't kind of worked on before, and such a great scope for creating sounds just because of the style of the film. That was a real fantastic film to work on. Animation is something I really enjoy doing, because really it's Foley all the way. You're starting from scratch. There's no live sound. So it's all Foley. You might not all get used, but we do as much as we can. Also films like World War Z, which is in the current time that I'm making this, during the coronavirus. World War Z, probably made now, would be a little bit inappropriate, but it certainly has some similarities between what's happening now and that movie. One of the other fun films I did was Narnia, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Lots of water involved in that. We had a giant swimming pool set up out the back. And when I say we're doing things outside, that's location Foley. And I do a fair bit of location Foley. And another episode, we can go through location Foley and how I do it. When I started in Foley, which is in the very early 80s, we were recording on a 3-track 35mm sprocketed tape machine. And these were loaded onto dubbers. These are the dubbers here. They were in the back room, in the projection room, and in the end we ended up going to a multi-track 2-inch tape machines, which is machines like this one here. We could have 22 tracks of audio on that, which was a fantastic luxury. It was all time code driven. There was no sprockets involved. We got all our pictures from a U-matic tape machine, and there was a synchronizer which joined the two together, and that's how we maintain sync. Now we work on machines like this, which is a Fairlight, which is what I use. Multiple tracks. I feel we can do 1,000 tracks on this machine if we want to. I'd never present 1,000 tracks to a re-recording mixer, I'd get shot. But it just goes to show how the technology's changed. Part of my background, apart from being in the dubbing side of things, as a dubbing projectionist, and I've also been involved in the actual re-recording mixing side. So I was doing effects and Foley for quite a few years in the mixing theatres. It was something that I enjoyed at the time, but I really did prefer just using, just being a Foley artist in my own little world, making my own sounds. It was good fun. I've also been involved in location sound recording as a unit, like a B unit or a second unit recordist. That's really enhanced my experience of what the rest of the crew do before we get to post-production. So I kind of know what they're all going through, and I think that's important to know the whole process, no matter what bit of the industry that you're in, even whether you're a film producer, a director. It's good to know the entire film making process, I believe. Rightio, so this is the door to my Foley room. We got a nice squeaky. And no, I'm not going to oil that because I've used it. Then we come in, I've got these little plastic blinds. They just keep a bit of dust out between here and because the control room is just there. Sorry, just there. And then we'll go into that. And then there's another door which also makes a great noise. There we go. So look, this is a typical looking room for me. It's messy. It got everything, including the kitchen sink. I just work off a monitor, a television monitor. We used to have projection a long time ago, but yeah, the monitor works well. It's on a lifting platform, so the idea is it's got a hydraulic ram onto the table there, and I can lift it up for when I'm doing normal work. But if I'm doing things on the ground, which is where I've been, or whether it's been horse or dog footsteps or something like that, I don't have to crank my neck right up in the air to work on it. So then we got a lot of steel cupboards and shelves, and obviously I can use the cupboard to make noises with, as well as store stuff in it. Got the fridge, the couple of different wooden surfaces, a hardwood, a softwood surface. At the moment it's just full of rubbish because I've just been doing little destruction scenes. That's why there's dirt and bits of crap all over it, just to make everything rattle when you're doing like earthquakey type of noises. Everything has a good sound. Old bed springs, chairs, trolleys. Normally better see more of the pits, but I've just shifted a heap of the props over the top to the top of them. But yeah, we're due for a bit of a clean up, that's for sure. There's a rack of some of the shoes. Yeah, as I said, it's not the biggest room. It's about 10 meters by 6 meters roughly, but there's nothing I can't do in here. I also do a bit of live event stuff, so hence there's trailers and things around the place. So there we go. That's a bit of my outside thing. Yeah, that's it. So why do we need to do Foley? These days, with the multiple speaker surround systems we have in theatres, Foley plays a much bigger part than it used to, because things are panned all over the room, so the mixers need a lot more separation and a lot more control so they can do panning and move things all around the room. Foley is also a major contributor to creating an M&E track, which is created by the re-recording mixer, but that's probably the only place where someone overseas for a foreign version will hear all our work, like all our footsteps will be in there, and all our hand pats and all our little cup downs and T-sips and all those bits and pieces that we do will go into the mix. So what mistakes? Now, I mentioned I was going to talk about what mistakes I've made in Foley, and And there's a few, and we still make them as we go along, and that might be miking too close, miking too far, just not quite getting the idea of the film. It's important to know the genre of the film and what the director's thinking. So you don't want to be working on a film where it might be a quiet film, everything's meant to be subtle. If you're not looking at the brief properly, you might end up doing these big over-the-top noises, and it'll just ruin the whole thing, and your Foley won't get used. You'll just get pulled right down. I've also done things like use the wrong surface plenty of times, where a surface looks to be correct on the actual picture that you're looking at, but in fact it's completely different. And that might be because the floor's been painted on the set to look like floorboards, but it's all concrete. So it's a bit hard, because you'll listen to the guide track and you'll go, okay, no, I've got to match that. That sounds like it's hard, but in fact they might want floorboards. And especially television shows. Television shows have very limited time, so we really bowl through those. And normally, like a 1 hour television show, we do in just one day. There's a few mistakes get made along the way with surfaces, especially, or even shoes. Sometimes you look at a character and you go, well, I wonder if she is in high heels, or if they've got sand shoes on, or runners. Maybe they got flip-flops, thongs, as we call them here, jandals, if you're New Zealand. And sometimes you'll go all the way through a scene, and then you'll look at the feet and go, damn, I've done it in completely the wrong shoe. So you've got to go back and start it again. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. That's the end of the first episode. The next one, we'll start getting into some more interesting stuff. So about the Foley room, the room design, the pits, what's been working well for me, and things like that. We'll see you on the Q&A in a few days' time. Make a few notes. If you've got any questions, you can email them to me, or just message me via the Facebook page, and I'll try and answer a few things. I don't really want to jump ahead on other topics though, so we'll kind of, if we can wait until we get to each one of those, that'd be fantastic. But once again, I hope that was okay for the first one, and we'll get stuck into it next week. Thank you.